when you were talking about neurodivergent,
Mhm.
and I've been learning more and more about that. I tend to get too focused.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. That's one of the
like,
superpowers of ADHD.
oh, is
And
it?
not that I know if you have that or not. I have ADHD. I'm late diagnosed. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 45. I'm 49 now. And it was just something I lived with. And I just used, I mean, I think that's the strength of women, is that we just power through. So I just use like sheer force and willpower to just power through, wondering why it was so hard for me to get things done and to have challenges when you have multiple things going on. So yeah, hyper focus is one of the superpowers, as well as some of the challenges. One of the challenges with ADHD.
Well, and it triggers my mom guilt hard because it connects with two or three topics you and I are talking about. One is building a business, being a solopreneur,
Hmm.
and I'm in a different stage than you probably are in terms of the evolution of your business. I would say mine is still like the very foundational stages, even though it's entering almost year four. But I get so focused, so focused. I mean, the house could burn down and I'd still be working.
I wasn't, yeah, I was like that before too. Yeah.
So,
Before I
yeah,
had my daughter, I could just work all day and still feel like I didn't get anything done.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I feel guilty like when my son Omni gets home. Namaste, beautiful souls. I'm Shilpa, and you're tuned into the Omni Mindfulness Podcast, a sanctuary for spiritual entrepreneurs. As a holistic mindfulness coach and social marketing strategist, I'm here to guide you on a transformative journey. On this show, we explore captivating stories and provide practical tools that deepen your connection with your authentic self. Through the personal and professional narratives of remarkable individuals, we expand our consciousness and ignite the spark of possibility. Each season, I curate content that empowers you to create a holistic lifestyle encompassing spirituality, mindfulness, energy awareness, and mindset. Join me as we engage in conversations with experts in their respective fields and share solo casts from yours truly, all aimed at supporting you and relaxing, revitalizing, resetting your body, mind, and spirit. I'm your host and the visionary behind Omni Mindfulness. So, what if just one story had the power to shift the trajectory of your life? What if you could become an instrument in helping others realize their true selves? And what if your soul's higher purpose lies in experiencing the joy of Omni Mindfulness? Remember, it's never too late to rewrite your story. Hey, Gail, it's so nice to have you.
Hi, Shilpa. Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Today, we wanted to kind of talk about a subject I feel like other female solopreneurs who might be moms or moms to cats and dogs can relate, and how you and I can maybe be of support just by having somebody be able to know that, hey, I'm not alone in this,
Yeah,
whatever that is. So, go ahead and share a little bit about yourself before we get too far ahead.
sure. I've been married for 19 years and we have a 5-year-old daughter. We also have an adult son. I think he's gonna be 32 this year, which is so crazy, from my husband's first marriage. And we are all neurodivergent. So my husband and I both have ADHD. My daughter has not been diagnosed yet, but she will be soon because we're experiencing some challenges. So she's definitely neurodivergent. And we also have a suburban homestead. So we have chickens, goats, ducks, a dog, a cat, parrots, fish, rabbits. And my daughter wants us to build a pond this year too. So we've got a lot going on, as well as my husband and I are both self-employed as business coaches.
And when you said fish, it reminded me of a conversation you and I had over chat a few nights ago about one of your fishes dying, which I'm not laughing about, but I thought it was sad.
It was very, very sad. I I let my daughter watch YouTube and YouTube Kids. And there's one particular channel I really enjoy. So it's something we watch together. But I wasn't paying attention that she was learning that this person who makes custom aquariums was putting sand in the aquarium. So she took her kinetic sand, which has extra chemicals and compounds to make it kind of like a slime-like structure or Play-Doh-like structure, and she put the kinetic sand in the fish bowl for our beta. And unfortunately, that is not something that should have been in the fish bowl. And I feel horrible. I feel like the worst mom ever. I was working. I was at my desk. I'm at my desk right now. It's a standing desk. It's in the dining room. It's right next to the living room. We're homeschooling right now because my daughter can't go to school at this point. And actually, we were planning to homeschool anyway. It just happened sooner than later. And I had my face turned, my body turned towards my computer like I am right now, and she's behind me. And so that is all happening. You know how like you just look at the corner of your eye just to make sure your kid is safe and and everything's okay. So to me, it looked like she was just decorating the aquariums. We have a tank as well as a fish bowl. But yeah, she was putting sand into that fishbowl, and unfortunately that was not good for the fish. So we lost our beta fish, and she cried off and on for 2 hours. At first I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what was going on. I just noticed that the fish was acting kind of weird later that night. But yeah, that was pretty traumatic, and it was because I was working while she was playing in the next room. And it kind of breaks my heart. I know this kind of stuff happens all the time because my number one concern was her safety, but she didn't know. We unfortunately learned a really hard lesson when it comes to taking care of animals.
And you mentioned like the mom guilt, and I can so relate to that. Like I I have this thing, there must be a term for it, when you were talking about neurodivergent,
Mhm.
and I've been learning more and more about that. I tend to get too focused.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that's one of the superpowers of ADHD.
oh, is
And
it?
not that I know if you have that or not. I have ADHD. I'm late diagnosed. I wasn't diagnosed until I was 45. I'm 49 now. And it was just something I lived with. And I just used, I mean, I think that's the strength of women, is that we just power through. So I just use like sheer force and willpower to just power through, wondering why it was so hard for me to get things done and to have challenges when you have multiple things going on. So yeah, hyper focus is one of the superpowers, as well as some of the challenges. One of the challenges with ADHD.
Well, and it triggers my mom guilt hard because it connects with two or three topics you and I are talking about. One is building a business, being a solopreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in a different stage than you probably are in terms of the evolution of your business. I would say mine is still like the very foundational stages, even though it's entering almost year four. But I get so focused, so focused. I mean, the house could burn down and I'd still be working.
I wasn't, yeah, I was like that before too. Yeah.
So,
Before I
yeah,
had my daughter, I could just work all day and still feel like I didn't get anything done.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I feel guilty like when my son Omni gets home, um, I will literally have to pull myself from the desk
Hmm.
to get do the things that a mom should be doing for their child. But
Hmm.
just to kind of back up a little bit, because
Sure.
you and I have so much in common when it comes to these, you know, everyday challenges of being a mom and multitasking, solopreneurship, but then the added element of being human with whatever conditions we have that are our personal unique challenges.
Mhm.
Maybe you can explain or define neurodivergent. I've been hearing more about this.
Sure. I don't know the like official term. For me, I define it as brains that just tend to process information differently than what they call neurotypical. I know that ADHD and autism falls under the neurodivergence category. I don't know what else is under there. I've been studying more ADHD since I'm late diagnosed, and my husband has ADHD. I knew a little bit about autism because I have some family members who are autistic, some cousins' kids are autistic, and you just see it in your community. And what's great about the information, it can be overwhelming, but I learned like little bits here and there. And I know with ADHD, we think of things like having difficulty focusing, but also it's difficulty in, as you mentioned, breaking away, having that hyper focus. It can also be things like emotional deregulation. So having a difficult time processing and expressing emotion. So when I feel angry, I can get really, really angry. Like it feels like there's this lava eruption, volcanic eruption in my body. And so I've had to learn through things like mindfulness and other types of practices to cognitive behavior therapy is another practice that you can learn through therapy, is learning how to regulate my own emotions and knowing that it's just how my brain is processing the information, and that it's not necessarily real. Of like, yes, I am angry and maybe I need a moment to cool down, but I have to use my brain to use logic and realize, okay, it really isn't that bad. It's okay, and kind of calm myself down. Some people, medication is very helpful. Medication helps me. Not everyone uses medication or needs medication, but that's another way to look at it. I think there's sometimes a stigma when it comes to medication, but you wouldn't tell someone who has diabetes not to use insulin. So it's personal to each person and their medical team. But those are just a couple of examples. And then with autism, I'm learning more about, because I have suspicion that my daughter may be on the autism spectrum. Something I just learned, because when I think of spectrum, I think of a line, like, no symptoms to a lot of symptoms. But what I'm learning is the autistic spectrum is actually a circle. So there's different categories, and some people may be high or maybe low. Like, for example, social, what's the word? I'll call it social connection. I'm sure there's a better word for that. But one symptom they look for is, will my child look you in the eye? And who do they look in the eye? Like, can she look me in the eyes? Can she look at a stranger in the eyes? And so that's one measure of it. But it could also be things, what she's experiencing is what's called sensory processing disorder. And just everything just feels so uncomfortable for her to have on her body. Like, some kids don't like hugs or touches, or what else? The fabric of a particular piece of clothing has to feel a certain way. And it feels so bad to them that it causes like this meltdown. So I think in the past, parents and maybe teachers interpreted this as, they're acting up, whereas no, their sensory system is over flooded and they're frustrated and just having like this traumatic experience, because something that feels like nothing to me feels like a knife cut to them. I mean, that's how I'm learning about it. So I'm in that process right now. It's not only, okay, running my business, taking care of my child, homeschooling, but now we have some additional challenges that we're facing. And then actually that's why she's right next. I mean, she's not with me right now. She's at my parents', but that's why most days she's right next to me while I'm working.
Hey, sweet souls. As we wrap up the season of pause, I've been reflecting on our journey over the last 3 months. It's been a time to slow down, reconnect, and truly appreciate the power of stillness. Pausing isn't just about taking a break. It's about finding clarity and creating space for what truly matters. Now, I'm excited to invite you to the next step. I'm launching my free energy awareness Masterclass, happening on the auspicious day of 11/11 at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll dive into harnessing our energy with purpose and presence. The link to register is in the show notes, so be sure and sign up. Let's keep this journey going, and as always, keep on expanding and being omni-mindful every moment. And that really ties back to what you just expressed in terms of how that's an additional layer of, I don't want to call it a challenge. It's just an additional layer of how we need to function in life. And everybody's got something on some level. It could be their personal, psychological, or what have you. And what I often feel like is people may forget that when you are an entrepreneur, to have more empathy for yourself, so that what do you call it? Have more grace for yourself, because
yes.
I'm the worst. Even though, and I say this to everyone, that I'm constantly trying to be a better person and improve. And so anything that I'm challenged with is why I talk about it. And so overwhelm.
Oh, that's a good point.
For sure. But what I try to remind myself, and I'm not saying I'm good at this, but I'm just saying to anyone who's listening that give yourself grace.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so easy to give grace to a friend, but why not to ourselves?
Right, right. Especially if we may be experiencing something similar. Like if she's having a meltdown, that's basically emotional deregulation. I know what that, or dysregulation. I know what that feels like. And I'm experiencing it too. I'm in a Facebook group of parents who their children are experiencing similar things. And some of us are like, I'm neurodivergent too, and I'm having a hard time coping with them. So if I'm supposed to be the model of what calmness is supposed to be, it's so hard to do that when your body and your brain is kind of working against you sometimes. It's a lot.
It is a lot. So you used a word that I actually tuned into in another podcast that I conducted with someone else, and we were off the cuff after recording. We were mentioning the level of anxiety one feels as an entrepreneur. I don't know about you, but my anxiety level is pretty high most of the time, and I do meditate and I try to do all the right things. And she used the word power through or push through, and I thought, a light bulb went off in my head. I go, how many times do I often power through and push through? And the answer is a lot. Like, I know, and because there are no signposts as a solopreneur. Early stages, you don't know when you're going to get there. Is it the first client? Is it the first podcast? Is how many things until that momentum starts going and you start generating income? And I don't know yet. I'm in the early stages. Even the podcast is successful, but how do you know when you will be able to start generating or monetizing? So what I do on a daily basis is I power through at the sacrifice of myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that we have to find that balance between powering through something and knowing when to surrender and go with the flow with whatever is going on in the world or our own worlds, our own lives. I have a friend whose business name has surrender in the name, which I love because every time I see it pop up on my feed, it's a reminder to me because I'm such a, I'm a recovering control freak, which is so funny because of what's going on with what's going on with our family right now. It's like this, the old me would try to like control everything versus this new me is doing my best to live day to day and appreciate the good moments, and you just kind of roll through the challenging moments and maybe even power through. But yeah, it is interesting. I'm kind of curious for you, Shilpa, when you're multitasking, like what is on your plate? What are you balancing between being a mother, being a wife, being a business owner? how do you figure that all out for yourself?
I'm constantly fine-tuning what works and what doesn't and refining. There are bad days, there are
Mhm.
some good days. Overall, when things are going, I would say in a way that's very intentional, but feels like there's allows for flow to occur.
Mhm.
Um, I more strategically follow an approach every day. So let's say it's on my wall right behind in front of me, but like Mondays are what I call admin days.
Uh-huh.
And Tuesdays I try to train or learn something that will help me further my business.
Mm.
And then Wednesdays is focused on podcast production, and podcast learning, all things podcast, but how it relates to the greater business as well.
Mhm.
And then Thursdays and Fridays are a little bit interchangeable, but basically about content production.
Mm.
But when it comes to the weekend, I very consciously, and it doesn't always happen, if there's a little bit that needs to get done, I get it done. But Sundays, I call self-care day, and I really, really mean it. Like, and it may not necessarily be like I go to a spa, but I'll take that extra 10-minute longer meditation,
Mhm.
or I make time on Sundays to make a nice big hearty meal or
Mhm.
breakfast that'll carry the family through the first few days of the week. So like
Mhm.
I made this really healthy smoothie that I was able to have early parts of the week, or a meal. I made this incredible quiche. So it's things like that, and I'm fine tuning as I go in life. And what about you, Gail?
For me, I used to do, I call that day blocking. Some people do time blocking or chunking, and they'll say 2 hours for this and 3 hours for that. That to me is a little too scattered. I like the idea of you have themes for the day, and that's what I used to do. And, and then my daughter was born, and you just kind of like just run around racket, just trying to do everything. So now we're starting to find our routine. My daughter is now willing to go to my parents' house once a week. That that stopped for a few months. She used to go to their house twice a week. She used to go to a preschool for a few hours a day. She went to a summer camp for half days for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden it just kind of stopped. So since July, I feel like I've just been in repair mode, crisis mode. But now that we're going back into our routines, I'm finding that Wednesdays are my meeting days. So I already have my group coaching call for my clients Wednesday afternoons. That's when I try to do some marketing meetings with potential strategic alliances or affiliate partners, recording podcasts. So this is like Wednesday is the day where I have quiet in the house and no interruptions. And then, to be honest, right now, just throughout the day, it's the rest of the week, it's just like fitting bits of pieces here and there. But what I have been doing that works well for me is to wake up early. I know that doesn't work for everyone, but I try to wake up at 5:30, and then by 6 I'm at my desk. So 5:30, I kind of roll out of bed very slowly. I do pick up my phone, but because it wakes me up, um, this is my morning routine. It's so funny. I pick up my phone and I play a little stupid game on my phone, but it wakes me up and it gets my brain going. And then I get up and I feed the dog and the cat and let the dog out. And we have baby ducks right now in the house. I check on the baby ducklings. Um, and then I do just a 10-minute little stretch. I mean, they're yoga poses, but I don't really consider it full yoga. But 10-minute stretch with some deep breathing, make some coffee, and then kind of dive in. And that's when I can do some real creative work. Right now, when I'm not coaching clients, I'm doing marketing implementation. So, content strategy, looking at what my clients produced in their podcasts or videos, and giving guidance to my VA of like, okay, we're going to make clips of these sections, and here's the overall plan for the coming month, and just kind of double checking the work and that kind of stuff. So early mornings are my deeper work. What I am missing though is my own content creation. Besides podcasts I've already recorded, I miss writing and just playing around with some ideas. I joined a thought leadership class. Not that I know what I'm going to say in this thought leadership class, but more as a way to explore what I'm trying to say and just get me back to writing. So that's what's missing. I haven't found that spot yet. Because when I wake up early in the mornings, I feel like I have to get to work, and do the client stuff, because that's what pays the bills.
Well, and I can hear you when it comes to that content creation, content focused creative work,
Mhm.
which is why I feel like we want to do what we're doing as a solopreneur because we're doing it or defining our purpose on our own time.
Yeah.
However, once you're in a business, like you were saying, life comes in the way and clients are need to be tended to first.
Yeah.
But I hear you. I'm using a lot of tools for streamlining, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I wanted to share that I just wrapped up pulling a bunch of copy of content that was created from this tool I've been using called Capshaw and Capshaw Next Gen, which produces different types of copy for you for your podcast.
Hmm.
However, it was the least fun part was to then paste and copy the copy so that I could do something with the copy. But
Sure. Yeah.
it took hours. Now
Oh,
I think that it actually caused me to get internal stress because I finally got it done. We're talking hours, hours and hours of work.
mm.
And then I was like, yes, now I can go back to the creative stuff. So we'll talk about that next time we have a podcast. But thank you so much, Gail, for this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I look forward to our future conversations.
Oh yeah, and if anyone wants to work with Gail, she's awesome. Look in the show notes. And Gail, can you mention what type of clientele you work with in the name of your company?
Sure. I love working with other service providers who like using video and podcasting to get the word out about their business. Happy to do content creation. And if you're thinking about what am I going to focus on for the next 90 days, I have a free 90-day business planner that you can download.
I will download that planner. Well, thank you, Gail. Until we talk again.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, sweet soul. If you've enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful for your kind review on Apple Podcast. Simply click on the link in the show notes to leave your lovely feedback and uplift our spirits. Your support means the world to me and helps our show thrive. So please show me your love and continue to practice Omni Mindfulness.